I can do it now. Yeah. All right, so very good afternoon to you all. And the topic which I want to start and discuss with you today, and hopefully we finish it as well, is free market economy and the price mechanism. If I have to reckon the most important topic in the entire course, I would reckon it the free market economy and the price mechanism, because this topic is actually the backbone of the entire market system. Entire market economy is based on this system of free market and the price mechanism. I remember there's a book published in 1776. It's called General Theory of Employment, Interest and Money. And luckily I have the original PDF of this book, the original text. It was written by John Maynard Keynes. He was an economist, but more than economist, he was the Queen's bureaucrat. We call him Lord Keynes or J.M. Keynes. He was discussing about the role of the state and the government in the economic affairs. But before J.M. Keynes, people like Adam Smith, who we call as father of economics, very famous economist from Scotland, Glasgow, Adam Smith, he was actually absolutely against the role of the state in the economic affairs. He was of the opinion that economy should be let work free organically, and any man-made restriction which infringes is unacceptable in the modern economic system. If the market has to work, it has to work with the invisible hand. And those invisible hands should be of demand curve and supply curve. And I sometimes jokingly tell my students that if somebody asks you, what is the modern economy? What is capitalism? What is the market system? What is the price mechanism? And the condition is imposed on you that you will define this phenomenon without uttering a word. So you have to mime it. You have to say something, but without saying it. So if somebody asks you define market, but the condition is that you will not speak a word, how would you explain it? Then there is a solution. The solution is that you will, oh, not this one. The solution is that you will draw a picture. And the picture is this one. This one. And this one. Why can't I draw? Huh?
You have to take the pencil.
Yeah, this one. So if somebody asks you, what is market mechanism? You can say that, hey, what I drew, of course, you can draw it much better. So according to my drawing, the market is not perfect, but you can draw well. So this is the market. So every economic decision is taken by the demand curve, which is downward sloping. So basically, if I take price here, so this is price. And this is demand and supply. Anything and everything is determined by this system. This is a mechanism. This is a theory. This is a philosophy. This is a discipline. This one picture defines everything. We have been living with this picture in reality. basically over centuries now. We may not be conscious of this reality, but the fact is that this is the picture which is the backbone or the foundation stone of our modern day market system. Price of anything is determined. So for example, if I want to say, price of capital, or let's say price of labor. Well, it's determined by demand and supply of labor. The labor is expensive, the price is up, demand is low. The labor is cheaper. Like in many countries in the world, they are reckoned as more like all the multinational companies. They are thronging those countries because they know that this product is highly labor intensive, and they move their production capacities to those countries because they know that labor is cheaper. And when the price of the labor is cheap, demand for labor is more. So people, countries, companies move to several countries. South Asia is a perfect example. Many multinationals, they have their production capacities in India, Bangladesh, nowadays Vietnam, China, and all those countries. They are the global production hubs of the big companies because the demand, the price is cheaper and demand is more. On the contrary, the supply of labor is going upward. If the wage is very low, if I'm a laborer and the price of the wage is very low, so to me, it doesn't really matter if I work or I remain unemployed, because even if I work, I don't get much wages. So I don't have any incentive to supply my labor. But as the wage increases, I feel more motivated to so I would rather give my leisure and replace it with more work. So I supply more labor, and as the wage goes up, I supply more of my labor. Of course, there's a different dimension that at some stage, the supply or the wage curve goes backwards, in the sense that in many developed countries, you will even see that the supply curve of labor, especially, is like this, actually. But that is a very later stage. But you get my point that if you are a owner of a company, you would demand the labor, but you will demand more if the price of labor is low. Low price, more demand. Yeah. And on the contrary, when you talk about supply of labor, then you talk from the point of view of supplier of labor. And who is supplier of labor? Worker is the supplier of labor. And for him or her, if the wage goes up, the worker will supply more, and eventually both demand and supply become equal, and that is called equilibrium. So we can say that the labor market is in equilibrium. Yeah, makes sense? And especially to the labor, because labor is not a silent like machine like capital. Labor is also a human being. And what happened, and labor thinks, labor has a behavior also. If I talk about demand and supply of machinery, this curve would always be upwards. But for labor, I deliberately make a kind of, how to say it, we make a diversion, which basically means that in OECD countries, in very rich countries, when the wage becomes very high, then you start preferring leisure over work, because you don't have any incentive to get motivated by the wage increase, because you are already enjoying the best of living standards. And then that is a basic concept of migration, that people come to the country, they like to do the jobs which perhaps natives don't want to do. They have no motivation to work, or maybe they don't even have the skills, and maybe they don't even need to produce the skills because having a university is more expensive, but buying those laborers from other countries is cheaper. So the wage curve, the supply of labor curve can go backwards. So it's a very, is a big dilemma that at very low level of wage and at very high level of wage, the incentive to work is low. At low wage, the incentive to work is low because it doesn't really make a difference if you work or remain unemployed, because your wage are very negligible, very small. That will not bring any change in your destiny. And on the high wage rates, like in the OECD countries, we experience like all the rich countries in the normal circumstances, the incentive to work hard getting attracted by the high wage increase is not that much. Okay. Of course, there are counter arguments, but we are talking about everything in the normal circumstances. So this is how this. If for the time being I forget this thing, then this is the basis of capitalism. This is the basis of laissez-faire. This is the basis of free market economy. This is the basis of price mechanism. This is the basis of modern day economic system. So we can explain it basically without uttering a single word. The first thing which comes to my mind when I talk about the price mechanism is the demand. And I want you to explain to me what is a demand. I want that you guys should be able to explain something about demand. What is demand, by the way? Before we go to law of demand, let's first have a consensus that what do we understand by demand? And I take a pause so that we don't have unnecessary. In my opinion, the demand for anything, including goods and services, the amount, the quantity of it, a certain good or service, which will be bought, at a given price of that commodity. And if the price goes up, the demand would be less. And if the price drops, price goes down, the demand would be more. Other things being equal, ceteris paribus, no other change. Hence, there is an inverse relationship between price and demand. Hence, there is an inverse relationship between price and demand. Do you agree or not? So demand is a quantity, first of all. It should be measurable of a commodity or a service. And as you said, consumers, I said producers also, which will be bought at a certain time, and it is related to the price. And if the price goes up, the demand goes down. And if the price goes down, the demand goes up, all other factors remaining constant. Now, this all other factors remaining constant is a very important assumption, which we shall discuss soon. So as a crux, we can say that the law of demand is based on something, and that something is called, there is an inverse relationship or negative relationship between price and demand. Agree or disagree? Agree. Now, wait a sec. If I say there is an inverse relationship between demand and price, am I still right? I just said before my last sentence I spoke, I said there is an inverse or a negative relationship between price and demand. And then I say, will it be still valid if I say the negative or inverse relationship between demand and price? So if I say price and demand, then I say demand and price, is it fine, or have I done some violation? Huh? Why not?
If you take more, it doesn't mean that it will become cheaper.
Mm-hmm. You said very right. In fact, if you take more, if you demand more, in fact, the price will go up. And if you demand less, the price will go down. So when you say price and demand, it means price is the cause and demand is the outcome. That is what we study in the law of demand. But if you say opposite, so see, if the price goes up, price is the cause, my left hand is cause and the right hand is effect. If the price goes up, what happens to demand? Up or down? Down. And when the price goes down, the demand goes up. Now I change. Now this is demand and this is price. If the demand goes up, price goes up. And if the demand goes down, price goes down. So the whole theory changes. Therefore, if in the exam you ever write that there is a negative or inverse relationship between demand and price, and you write everything correct, all the pictures are drawn very nicely, then there can be some consequences. I'm not threatening you. Sorry, I didn't mean it. But what I'm trying to say is that there is an inverse relationship between price and demand. Agree or not? It's fine. Anybody wants to contribute? Say something. Did I ignore anybody who raised hand or something? You raised hand, I guess. Yeah? Sorry, say again. Oh, okay, all right. We split the price, this price effect, the effect of price, into two parts. And I would give you an evidence, and those evidences are given in the web link which I shared with you. The question is that why do when the price goes up, the demand goes down, and when the price goes down, the demand goes up? The first factor responsible for this behavior is that income effect. A consumer has a fixed income, is it? At a given point of time, your income is fixed. And when the price goes up, your purchasing power goes down. Does it make sense? If you have 100 euros as your income to spend on grocery, and the basket of grocery which you go to and you want to buy from Prisma or any other store, the price has gone up. Will you be able to buy the same amount of quantity which you were able to last week? No. Why so? Because your real income has gone down. The real income means even though your monetary income is same, you had 100 euros last week, you have 100 euros this week as well. But the 100 euros which you had last week were more valuable than the 100 euros you have now. Because of more price this week, the 100 euros are able to command less power over products and services. Yeah. So the first thing is the income effect. And the second factor is the substitution effect. Many goods and services have a substitute. And when and let's say there are two products, I'll give the example afterwards. If X and Y are the substitutes, close substitute, and if X gets get more expensive, then people have a choice to move to Y. Let me give an example. If tea and coffee are not perfect substitutes, but close substitute. Yeah. And if tea gets expensive, then people can perhaps, after with a few cribbing and complaints, groaning and moaning, they can at least have a substitute to drink. They can't afford tea anymore because the price goes up. So they can all flock towards the coffee section in the store. So what happens? The price of tea goes up, the demand for tea goes down, and the demand for coffee increases, even though coffee has not become cheaper. Make sense? So this is called substitution effect. Now, I was trying quite hard since morning that what example I should find for these two effects, but eventually I was successful in finding two examples. The first example is this one. Let me check it for you. I hope I'm sharing it with you now. Yeah, it is getting shared. This is. And this is basically inflation. Sorry? Am I not sharing it?
No, right now we can't see that.
You can't see it?
No.
No?
Now we can see.
Now you can see? So the first thing is this example that in which we see that the inflation, the price of consumer goods is going down quite sharp. And what do you think that if the price of the consumer goods goes down in UK, which is now, it was as high as 3% in 2018, very high. 3% inflation rate is very high, I would say. And now it goes to 0.2%. So what are the consequences in the line of, in the context of price and demand relationship? What do you think should have or could have happened in Britain since 2018? Because the inflation rate is dropping from 3% to 0.2%. What a drop. Yeah, anyone can say. You want to say something? I thought you want to.
Well, the prices have been going down.
Mm-hmm.
The value of money has been increased.
The value of money is going up. Yeah. Okay. Is it a good incentive for the consumer? Is it a good thing for consumer?
Well, deflation is not really a good thing.
But the inflation is going down.
Yeah, but it's inflation. It can turn into a deflation. That money is more valuable, but you can still buy it.
That's a very interesting thing you pointed out. So I repeat my question, and let's go step by step. But I want to stick with the point you said. If the price goes down, if the inflation goes down, basically, because price increase is a reflection of inflation, even though every price increase is not inflation. Inflation is price rise, but every price rise is not inflation. Inflation is much broader word, okay? All right, so let's say if the price goes down, consumers happy or unhappy? Consumers are happy. Who is unhappy?
I was saying that they're happy because, like, if they have 100 euros, they can buy more stuff.
So the buying power, the purchasing power of the money, or what we call in more technically called real income, goes up. the companies can be unhappy. The companies can be unhappy. Why? Because many goods, the price can change almost every day, yeah? But those goods are supplied already to the stores maybe a few months ago or maybe a few days ago. And when those goods were manufactured, the cost was high. Yeah? So when the cost was high, so it means that the cost of production it was more, but now the price is going down. And when the price is below the cost of production, what happens? It may be good for consumers, but it's not good for, yeah, go ahead. The companies are losing money. And what happens when the companies are losing money? What will happen? Will this happiness of consumer remain forever? Sorry, yeah. They pay their workers less. So what happens is that the consumer have 100 euros, let's say, a day, and very happy when he sees the price has gone down. But next time, the trade union leader is called by the boss, owner, that, hey, you know what? Either we retrench these extra labor, we send them home, we send them off, or we can keep the same amount of workers, but you have to agree that you will accept less wage. What happens? The happiness is short-lived. And when one company is doing it, the second company is doing it, the third company is doing it, and some companies are not able to cover the cost. Some good companies are able to negotiate with the trade unions, but some are not. And eventually many companies will become bankrupt and there would be corporate closures. And that will lead to unemployment. And if this cycle goes on and on and on, then it will not take too long when the company, when the economy is in the grip of recession. If I think from very, very micro point of view, I take it very positively. But if I see from a very larger, the big picture, all the economic dynamics, if I keep those things into consideration, I'm not very myopic. I'm not looking at only consumers for a few days or for a few months. I see the longevity, sustainability of economy, then I have a reason to be worried when the price is dropping. Because it may lead to mass scale unemployment and corporate bankruptcies, corporate closures, and so on and so forth. So in economics, when you study something, there are some apparent scenes, but you have to go beyond. You have to see the bigger picture. So when you see the big picture, you see that this increase, this drop in the inflation is not healthy for the, or may not be healthy for the companies in the long term. Yes.
I don't know if this is like kind of outside the point, but what has caused like this big of a like downwards inflation?
It could be possible. Now, remember some around 10 minutes ago, I used a phrase that never say that demand and price. Always say price and demand. This fall could be because of demand and supply price relationship, that because the demand is going down overall, people don't have urge, people don't have resources to buy, then price is not a cause, but an outcome of the poor economic system. Yeah. So it could be demand and price dynamic, that because already the demand in UK is low, and then automatically there is a price downward pressure on the prices. That could be a reason for this. Yeah. So this is a good example that when you have the increase, when you have a drop in the inflation, then it's a good thing, but it may not be a good thing forever. The sustainability of this goody thing, this brownie, this goody, may not last for a long time. Yeah. So that's what I want to suggest. Yes.
What did they do to increase inflation rate?
What do they do? Yeah, that's a good point. I think in economics, when we study this course, we should be very solution centric, and this is a very good point that you're asking me for a solution. Okay, if you are Rishi Sunak, who's the finance minister of UK, if you are that person, what would you do in this situation? What would you do? Say again. Say again.
Maybe brings more money.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe you will try to infuse. You know, sometimes we have artificial infusion of inflation. That for me, it's very worrying if this inflation, this price drop is because the demand has dropped first, and that led to fall in the price. I want to create some kind of ignition. I want to create some spark in the minds of consumers and producers. And the first thing I would do is I would cut the rate of interest. And I would provide some more subsidies to, I will be a little bit more generous and more humane to the consumers and to the producers. And my speech will not be enough. I need to show through my actions. And the first action I would do is that I would cut the rate of interest so that the cost of borrowing for the producers and the consumers go down. And then there's a more market flow, the money flows. So this, now please tell me, do you know which policy, which important policy I'm saying without naming it? When I say that if I have to do something, I would cut the rate of interest. Which policy? Monetary policy. Good job. So this is the monetary policy. Am I missing one more policy? Fiscal policy. And what would I do in the fiscal policy? How can I generate more money and more, more activity in the economy? I would do some, I would initiate some infrastructure projects. I will start building roads and some more schools and start employing people. Okay, I start cutting the tax rate. I start providing even more subsidies to the consumers and producers. So both state, the United Kingdom, the Exchequer, what they call as a Ministry of Finance, and at the same time, the Bank of England, they both will be on mission expansion. Mission expansion means print more, give more money, do anything and everything which creates more resources with the people to spend and to borrow. Of course, it can have its own backlash, but in order to avoid the economy going into 0% inflation and then negative inflation, in order to avoid this situation, it's very important that I need to create some activity. I remember the words of Lord Keynes, J.M. Keynes. Somebody asked him that how you can create activity. I mean, what I'm talking about, the same situation. Somebody asked him that, what would you do? And he said that he used this very nice phrase. He said, dig up the holes and fill it. Dig up the holes and fill it, which basically means that create even those jobs which are unnecessary. In a very frantic, in a very extreme situation, call the laborers in the morning, ask them to dig up, give them wage, not give them wage yet, and then in the afternoon say, hey, fill it now. End of the day, give them wage, they will go home, but before they go home, they will buy something from store. And then starts the recovery process. So if in a very extreme situation, when the economy is almost on the brink of recession, do it. My next question to you, why not letting the economy into recession is so vital? For the last 10 minutes, I have been speaking so much to recovery, ignition. I'm using these words, recovery, activity, do something. Why I'm so scared of inflation rate going down to 0 or negative? Quite so. It seems from my last few minutes discussion that I want to do something urgent so that this inflation rate doesn't drop too much. Does it mean that I love inflation? Of course not. Why I'm so, why my hands are itching to not let the economy fall in 0% or negative inflation. Gentlemen?
Because you don't want to go into deflation.
Because I don't want to go in the deflation. Why not? If I have a choice between inflation and deflation, let's call it inflation and recession, right? If I have a choice between inflation and recession, what should I do? I mean, the fire and the fire pan, they burn equally, but which one I choose? Inflation, why so? But then you don't have money your money becomes useless basically, because even though you have more income, more salary, but the inflation is so high that you can't. We have a pattern that follow. Yeah. Anybody else? Yes.
Like if we close too much to either one of the directions, it will cause a lot of harm for the economy, because like the corporation would like suffer and people would lose jobs and the money wouldn't like go around. Everything would kind of just stop.
Yeah. Okay, good argument.
That, like the country doesn't like work if there are any taxpayers and everything, so it would like collapse.
Yes.
Well, when deflation, you're in this sort of short-term happiness that prices are falling, but that also means that there's less consumer spending at the same time, with the
less investments.
every product is lower, so I'd rather always have like a healthy inflation than.
Very good. Very good. Very good. Very well said. All of you, well said. If I'm the finance secretary or minister, I wish I can ever be. Lots of money, lots of salary, nice car, everything. Not my old Toyota. If I have a choice between inflation and recession, I would definitely go for inflation. Definitely. There's a reason for it. And the reasons actually you gave already, but I just want to package them again in a different context. Why I would prefer inflation is that it's easy to cure inflation, but it's far more difficult to cure recession. If inflation is high, we can bring it down by tough monetary policy and tough fiscal policy. Tough monetary policy, I just said, just opposite to what I said. Raise the rate of interest, okay? Don't give loans, the less money supply in the market. Follow tough fiscal policy, use austerity. You know, austerity is a very bad word these days. Don't spend money, save money, basically. The state should save money, basically. But if the economy is in recession, no matter how much freebies, how many these lollipops of incentives I give to consumers and producers, nobody would take up. Nobody would take them. Like I gave you example of Japan, that there has been negative rate of interest for over 25 years now. And people are not borrowing money because inflation can be cured with the technical tools like monetary policy, fiscal policy. But recession requires not only the technical tools, but also psychological treatment. Because people think that everything is over, life is over, recovery would never happen. people become depressed psychologically. People become pessimistic. Consumers don't want to buy anything because even though prices are falling, because they don't want to give up their cash, because they think that the things will become even worse and then they will need cash. And investors are not spending anything, so everything is very much depressing. I'm not sure if I drew this picture or not, but I can draw it now if the need be. And that is, oh yeah, I will. And that is new share. Whiteboard, actually. I need to draw the whiteboard. I have the whiteboard, yeah. No? Can you still see whiteboard or not?
Yes, we
you
can
see. Okay. Okay. What I'm doing, by the way?
I think that you have to widen the screen of the whiteboard.
Yeah.
Like on the top corner, maybe.
Oh yeah, I need to do this way. Now it's good. Thank you. So for the last 100 years and above, the economic cycles have been observed. So if I say 1900, if I take here 1900 and here I take, for example, 2020, I can extend this line further. The pattern of economic cycles have been like this. And do you observe something in these economic cycles? Do you make any observation? Yeah? Sorry? It repeats itself. There is a saying that history repeats itself, even though we never learn from it. What else? So they are repetitive, right? So they are recurring after every decade or 2 decades or so. Yeah. What else do you observe? Except that my handwriting is marvelous. Well, you can give me compliments afterwards. But what do you think is other observation?
You want to speak?
Yes, gentlemen.
It's just sort of going up and down. So like when it's going down, it's like a recession, and then you're sort of
that's
getting into growth, and then you go down again.
Okay. Yeah, that's fine. So it's like recurring. So they are eventually up and down. Things, yes.
The economy can't go up forever. It has to go down.
It has to go down, and if it is down, it has to go up eventually. Why I'm not hearing that I want to hear? Huh? Say? Okay.
Online.
Huh? Is anybody? Do you make any observations, my online friends? Is any comment, Seher?
No.
Not yet. Yeah.
There's invisible roof and floor. Always reach that.
Yeah, that is there. Yeah, of course, there is always a. But it's a picture. It can go very down, and it can go very up. My question is that what observations do you make in this picture? And some people said that it's going up and down, recurring. it's occurring time, and then people said that yes, there's always a limit to go up and down. Every recovery followed by every downfall, and so on and so forth. So basically, we are only observing the trends and patterns in this picture.
Are you looking for like every peak, like every next peak or peak is like higher than the earlier one?
That's just a matter of drawing. Just that's just a matter of my drawing. There's no pattern that every new inflation was worse than before, or every recession was worse than the previous one. There is no such. Yes. Bravo. Excellent answer. This is what I was trying to. Well, you all answered very well, but this is a very important observation that if you look at the period of upswing, it's always shorter than the period of downswing. Downswing lasts long. Even though I just drew it, in a very random manner, but I was conscious while making this drawing that the period of downswing should be longer than the period of upswing. The reason is that when the economy is very peak, it's very inflationary situation. And I said sometime before that solving inflation is much easier by following strict monetary and fiscal policy. But the problem is that when the economy is in recession, your monetary and fiscal policy measures do not remain so much effective, because people are, their mentality, their psychology, their perceptions, their assumptions, their hopes are dashed to ground, basically. They are pessimist. So this has a strong psychological impact on the people. So that's why it takes longer. Japan has great economists. They have not been able to solve this problem for the last 25 years. So basically Japan, the world has experienced recession in 2007. Japan has been observing it since mid-90s. So they people know how to live with this situation. So that's my point here, is that's why if I have to pick a choice, if I have to make a choice between the inflation and recession, I would definitely go for more inflation. I understand people would have craving, oh my gosh, we earn money and we are not able to buy something. Come on, you have jobs at least. You can buy something. If you can't buy very expensive food, you can buy some subsistence level of food. But what if you don't have a job altogether? What would you do then? Even though the price is, Ferrari is so cheap, well, you can't buy it even though it's very cheap because you don't have a job. Ferrari is very expensive. Well, you can't buy Ferrari. At least you can buy Volkswagen, some cheap brand. So which situation is better? Yeah. People are able to spend money. Yeah. So this is how we talk. And by the way, inflation is so bad that a recession is so bad, or inflation, both situations are so bad that they are not restricted to just economic problems. They cause the chaos in the society. They have some political repercussions, and the overall national what the word we use, the fabric of society gets disturbed. So, and people have strong psychological impacts also, and all that thing. So, oh, it's so depressing sometimes. The next thing which I discussed already with you was substitution effect. Do you remember it? Do you still remember? What was substitution effect? Somebody answer? Yes, sir? Oh, I love your example. More than your answer, I love the example. But what if I love both? What if I love both? Then I have to generate more income, yeah? All right, no, that's a good example. And I want to show you something. It's a very interesting article, which I found. I don't agree with BBC much, but I find very interesting article from BBC. The crime targets. Do I share it? Oh, sorry for my selfish laughter. Can you see it now?
Yes.
The crime targets affected by a drop in goods prices. This is a substitution effect from the point of view of thieves, robbers. The article is about that the thieves, they have started stealing things. They don't steal anymore, the things which they used to, because they have become so cheap that they can buy them. So this article is about this thing, that even we can see the substitution effect in our behavior. They give some example that all these DVD players and all that stuff, they were very expensive, not long time ago in Britain. They were in fact, when I used to live in Britain, until then, these DVD players and all that stuff was damn expensive. But now they have become cheaper, so there is no point of stealing them. And now they are moving away from stealing to scams. So they like to do some scams than stealing things directly. Yeah. So there is a substitution effect because the things have become so cheap. So you rather substitute it for some more expensive things. One. The same thing, when something becomes cheaper, you prefer to consume it more because the alternative is expensive. Yeah. Do two things always substitute to one another? I mean, substitute like tea and coffee, for example, or like you steal DVD or you do some scam. Are they always substitutes? No. What else could be the relationship between two goods? Or is petrol and car, are they substitute? Is computer and printer substitute? Are they substitute? Huh? They complement. So the opposite is complement. So here, in case of complement, the relationship is opposite, right? So what happens when the demand for automobile fall, the demand for petrol will also fall, because when people are not having the car, what would they do with the petrol? So therefore one more thing we must know, that things are not in isolation. Most of the products which you consume, they have complements and they also have the substitutes. So sometimes we start consuming more or start consuming less of something, even though the price of that something is same. Yeah. So all right, so these are interesting articles, you should go through them. This is how the law of demand reflects itself. You can see that there is a price, and there are two consumers in the market. So we have Kate and Simon, we have overly simplistic economy, and we have only two consumers, two persons who buy. And we see that when the price of a kilo increases, the demand of this product by Kate declines, and the demand made by Simon also declines, right? And if there's a Kate, Simon, some Yanne, Shab, Seher, and all other people, if you club all of them, then the total demand is 700 kilos when the price is 20. Yeah, so this becomes the market demand. So this is the individual demand, and this is the market demand. And when you combine them, it happens that when the price is 20 pence a kilo, then the demand is a lot, 700 units, you can see here. And on the other hand, when the price is 100, then the demand shrinks to 100. So in between, there are different combinations. Yeah. And this is the individual demand schedule and the market demand schedule. And when you put them together, when you show this behavior in a tabular form, we use the word schedule. But when you show them graphically in a pictorial form, then we call it a curve. So it's a curve or a picture, right? So we have a table and a graph. I want to ask you something now. I would never let you sit quietly. Look at the Kate's demand pattern and Simon's demand pattern. Do you observe something? Do you try to know something about the nature, Kate and Simon's nature? Do you know something about their characters? Yeah.
Perhaps the good which is listed in the table is necessary for Simon because he wishes to buy it even though the price is 100.
Yeah.
And the Kate perhaps buys it just for her entertainment, as the price is 100. She doesn't want to buy.
Excellent. Very good answer. Very good answer. I'm very impressed. So it shows that how people perceive things. Look, the gentleman said that for Simon, maybe this product is a necessity, essential. It's a matter of food, shelter, clothing kind of thing, yeah? And when the price is low, he's not consuming too much. When eggs become cheaper, we don't store them. We don't store our apartment with eggs. You know, if the bread becomes cheap, we don't start eating it. We don't start having food 6 times a day. We still eat in a pattern. So when the price is low, the demand is not too much in comparison to Kate. And even when the price is very high, we still need some food to eat. But the same product doesn't seem to be a necessity for Kate, because when the price is low, Kate is going for more of it. So it's not just necessary, it's not just necessity, something else. And when the price is very high, she consumes it 0. It means she can live without it. And if you can live without something, it's not necessity. So in other words, what is necessity for X can be a comfort or a luxury for Y, and so on. And then we have the combined market demand, and this is how it looks like. It can be a little bit, you know, not very linear, non-linear, but if you see the overall trajectory of this line, it will be more or less a straight line or a kind of convex, the origin. Okay, so overall, the demand curve is downward sloping. There is not consensus if it is always a straight line, but usually, even though there is a curve oscillations, the overall trajectory is downward sloping of the demand curve. Okay, so this is how the demand curve look like. The factors which determine demand. I want you to answer for this. When the price of, now see, I'm talking about demand for X. Let's assume in our discussion that we are talking about some X commodity, X commodity. Does demand for X depends on price of X? How? We discussed quite a lot. I will not spend much time on it. You all know, I'm sure. Does demand for X depends on taste of people? Can somebody say a bit more? Yeah.
Like when something is in fashion right now, people will buy this more.
Regardless of price. Regardless of price, yeah. So if something is in, people have a taste for it, then even though the price goes up and down, you go for it. You just get it. Good job. The number and price of substitute goods. Does having a substitute impact demand for X? It means if you have more substitutes, so tea is not having just coffee, but more than coffee as a substitute, then the demand for tea will be more sensitive, because then tea is not kind of monopoly thing. People have the options to leave tea and go to some other products. And of course, the price of substitute, when coffee become expensive, what will happen to demand for X? When coffee becomes expensive, what will happen to demand for tea? Increases. And when coffee becomes cheaper, what happens to demand for tea? It goes down. Okay, good job. The number and price of complementary goods. When the price of automobile goes down, what happens to demand for petrol? When the price of automobile goes down, what happens to demand for petrol?
It increases.
Is anybody answering? Demand will go up, because when the price of petrol goes down, when the price of automobile goes down, people will buy more automobiles, and when they buy more automobiles, they need more petrol. Yeah. What about income? More income, more demand. I gave you an example that I know your students, you might have some limited access to income, so you have some limited demand of certain things, but you have a lot of potential demands or some suppressed demands. I want to ask you something. When you get your full proper job and you have your first salary, will you save anything from that? Will you save any money from the first salary? You must not. Come on.
Will not save it.
I spent my first salary in 3 hours after I got it. Yeah, in less than 3 hours, I guess. Yeah, that's not very wise, and I never said I'm wise. Distribution of income. I can elaborate what do I mean by distribution of income. You have one society where all the income is skewed in favor of very rich and wealthy people. So very few rich people have lots of income. And then you have a second society where the income is relatively equally distributed. Where would you see more demand? In which society you will see more demand? Can you back up your argument?
Because like if someone has $100,000, they're going to like spend it on like 100 packets of the coffee.
Yeah.
But if you like give that money to 100 people, everyone would buy one.
Excellent, excellent. Very well said. So if you have an extreme unequal society, those people who can afford they'll be very rich, of course. And if the price of coffee drops, it doesn't make any sense to them. And for the poor people, the drop in the price makes difference to them, but they don't have income to buy coffee. So either way, the demand doesn't pick up much. This is why the middle class in the society is so important. Have you seen the multinational companies moving to their investments to the countries where the middle class is very big? One big reason all these multinationals love to be in India is because India has massive, mind-bogglingly massive middle income class. Middle class people are more sensitive to the price changes. Poor people, for them, the price falls, well, it doesn't make any difference on their lives. Rich people, price falls, no motivation. The most sensitive to the price or the income increase are the people who are in this middle income, who are between 25% to 75% of the, the middle 50%. Expectation of the future price changes. If you expect the future price to go up, if you expect that the price of X good will rise in the future, what will happen to its demand now? You buy more of it now. And if you hope that the price will drop in the future, you will wait till your perceptions come true. Yeah. Population. A society with more population and a society with less population. Which one has more demand? Should I even say? Or should I even ask you? Huh? Obviously, more consumers, more market demand. Technology. Are there more demands in today's world where we have technology at its peak, or was there more demand when technology, like 70s, 60s, decades, last century? Look, technology leads to increase in your living standards. So you consume more of the same thing. But there are many things which are not even existing in the market when the technology is backward. But with the advent of technological development, there are many new products and services come up. Like when we were young, I hardly heard about a system analyst position or some web developers. I never heard about it. But now these are the new services, and they're the kind of phones you guys have. Well, I better don't say anything about my phone. Yeah, so there are new products. The technology introduces us to the new thing. So I think it's self-explanatory. Now, one thing I want to ask you, can somebody repeat the law of demand, which I said? It's very important that we revise the law of demand now. I want to hear somebody saying it. But be very specific, the definition which I used. What is law of demand? Please try, don't feel any pressure. Go ahead.
Price goes up and demand goes down.
Uh-huh.
And here is another law when demand goes up. And
well, that's an exception. That's an exception to it. But let's stick to law of demand.
People will buy more
Mm-hmm.
if the price is lower.
Okay.
And they will buy less, then the price will go up.
Okay, very good. Are we missing something?
I think it should be applied that it only works when talking about normal goods like commodities.
Yeah, that's fine. Normal goods, yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
It works like that when all the other factors.
Very good. I said when other things being equal means there's no impact. So remember the word this gentleman used? The price goes up, demand goes down, price goes down, demand goes up, right? When all other things are equal. Now the question is, what are the other things? These are the other things. If these other things are not equal, the price and the demand relationship will not hold. Example. The law of demand says that when the price of X goes up, demand for X goes down. Yeah? Okay? Stick with this. The demand for tea can increase when the price of coffee increases. Am I right? Even though there is no fall in the price of tea. Now, can I still say there is a negative relationship between price and demand? Can I still say? Because the demand for coffee increased, sorry, the demand for tea increased, even the price of coffee is constant. Because people who used to consume coffee, they have moved towards tea. Should I repeat it or do you understand? Huh? Can I? Okay, I will. Okay. Now, you said yourself that, and I'm a witness to it, you can't deny, many people have heard. And if you change your statement, I will send you the recording, especially the part when you spoke. You said that the price goes up, demand goes down. Yeah? Did he say this thing? Yeah. So when the price of tea goes up, sorry, when the price of tea goes down, the demand for tea should go up. When tea becomes cheaper, the price goes down of tea, the demand for tea should increase. Let's keep these two things into mind. Price, you said, now you're saying something else. Yeah. So when the price goes down, when the price of tea goes down, the demand for tea goes up. Yeah? You agree? Now, the price of tea has not fallen, but price of coffee has increased. And as a result, many people start moving away from coffee to tea. So demand for tea has increased, even though price of tea is constant.
An influence of substitution factor.
Yeah. So it means that now I cannot say that there is a opposite relationship between price and demand, because price of tea has not fallen, but the demand for tea has increased. So therefore, what I say, when this law is applicable when other things are equal. And here I assume that the relationship between price and demand for X holds if the number of and the price of substitute goods doesn't change. Distribution of income. I'm not talking all the points, I'm just taking some points randomly. The society used to be very unequal, but now society is becoming equal. So the middle income, so the society was very polarized, very rich people and very poor people. And now there is a development of a middle class. Even though the price do not fall, the demand will start rising, because those people who are newly emerging middle income people, they will start consuming more. Population, when it increases, the prices, even though they don't change much, there are more mouths to feed and they demand more. So the point I'm trying to make is that this very fine, very sophisticated, very one sentence relationship between price and demand holds if the other things being equal. And once the other things being equal condition is lifted, then the relationship between price and demand doesn't hold much. So that is why when I say, what is that? Yeah, what is that? When I say other things being equal, this one, I mean to say that if you want to study demand for X as a function of price of X, you have to assume that all other factors are constant. And there's a reason I have this dotted line here, because what I want to say is that there are many other factors which is beyond my imagination, which can have an impact on the demand of good X. So there are thousands of factors which can have. Some of them I'm able to write down because they're so visible, but some of them I'm not able to foresee. So I just make it open-ended. So this is called demand function. Demand functions mean what are the factors which have an impact on the demand. We can, and that's everything for today.